Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Wednesday, July 8th with first pitch at 6:30. It's Woo Wednesday in collaboration with the Wu-Tang Clan. The Ferry Hawks transform into the Shaolin Hawks. Thursday, July 9th, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light drafts.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats. Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And, John, we have Melissa DeRosa now.
There's a lot of things going on. Melissa, what's going on in New York that you're mad as hell about?
Well, there's stuff going on in New York, including the New York City budget after them, Kathy Hochul flip-flopping around and doing everything she could to contort herself to give tons of money to New York City, who cried that they were broke. Somehow the spending in New York City went up 8.5% in the final budget. So that's happening in New York City, which we should talk about. But really, I'm focused today on what's going on in Maine and this Graham Plattner implosion that is dominating the national political and even here in New York, the New York political world.
Yeah, what do you think, first of all? It's disgraceful. And let's just talk, it's your party, Melissa. How could your party, it literally just came out a few minutes ago that Bernie Sanders is finally saying, I think it's a good idea for him to not continue in the race. That's sort of the last one. What took him so long?
Well, and I don't know if you knew this, Reed. I think I may have said on your program, I've been beating this drum for 2 months saying he's unfit.
Yes, you have. You have. But you know what, Melissa? There's not that many others who have.
No, it's true. And you know what? Country over party. And at a certain point, you have to draw a line. And you know what? He had me at Nazi tattoo. This should not be a difficult test in terms of who we allow to become leaders within our party, within our state, within our cities, countries, and people that the Democratic Party are electing right now, and the compromises that we are making on our morals, the excuses we're selectively applying to certain people who hold fringe ideological positions and trying to get them into office so long as they hate Israel, so long as they will spout economic nonsense, which has never worked anywhere else in the world, then they're fine. It doesn't matter. They can do no wrong, according to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and then even Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, who were not initially with Planter, then endorsed Planter when Janet Mills dropped out, and they've stood by him up until yesterday. And so it's just when you stoop that low, when you're willing to stand with a guy who mocks a member of the U.S. military, who was shot by the Taliban, who wrote an article in Reddit saying women should take personal responsibility for being raped, horrific things about law enforcement, just the list is never ending. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Finally, Bernie Sanders today says he should step aside. Zoran Mamdani says he should step aside finally today. This was the last thing. So, no, it's a disgrace, and frankly, I'm proud that I have been speaking out about him for the last few months, and there are a handful of other Democrats who have too, but it's a very small amount, and there's far too much fear within the Democratic Party of these radical leftists who right now are trying to completely take over. And that's the problem.
Melissa, a lot of it, though, is exactly what John was saying earlier. It's the polls. Because if you look at the polls, at first he was doing better against Susan Collins. He had a decent margin against her. Oh, and then even Elizabeth Warren said, he's my guy. I like that kind of guy. Even after all of the initial allegations. And it's only been in the last week or two that the polls have really tightened and looking like he could lose the race. So it's like, it's the polls that woke him up, not the allegations.
Yeah, I think it was the polls, and I think it was the timing, right? Because there's 1 week left to remove him from the ballot. So I think that in the combination of, polling is lagging indicators. So right now it's just starting to really show the shift. She tied him, and then a couple of days ago there was a poll showing him down for the first time. And if he was down for the first time a week ago, that probably means even before the allegation, he's slipping even more. And I think that in combination, they were willing to swallow it all if it meant picking up Maine. And when it didn't feel that way anymore, and there's 1 week to act to get him off the ballot, they all jumped. And it was so cynical And it just reaffirms what everybody thinks about politicians and whether or not they have a core and authenticity and the power vacuum within the party. So, no, I don't disagree with you.
Judge Weinberg.
Melissa, good to talk to you. I mean, part of the problem is that you have somebody as qualified and experienced and as decent as Susan Collins, who works with both sides of the aisle, and people were just abandoning her in droves. People who knew her well knew the good work she's done in the Senate and for the country, and that didn't matter in this lust to win. Well,
the party right now wants to take over the majority, and the Democrats saw the mass, running through Maine, that was a critical state to flip. And so, I understand the desire to be in the majority, obviously. And when it comes to things like Supreme Court justices and appointment confirmations and other things, it's critically important that the Democrats, in my view, be in charge of the Senate. But that at the same time, it was the idea that people were willing to wrap their arm around this guy. Again, I say Nazi tattoo, excusing or saying women, should take responsibility for rape.
Buck up. Right.
All these things that they're willing to wrap their arm around him because of Susan Collins. It's like, of all the Republicans, you can't really get me too worked up about her. She's on the right side on Roe v. Wade. She does vote with Democrats 50% of the time. Like, if it was a MAGA extremist, if it was somebody who was truly reprehensible, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, something, I would get it. But this was just a compromising of so many of all of these different elected leaders' values for a guy who was just so clearly rotten on the inside that it just makes everybody look so bad.
And the thing, too, this is interesting. I was looking at sort of who's been his most stalwart supporters. One of them is Ruben Gallegos. And Ruben Gallegos is the guy who was best friends with Eric Swalwell. And he's stood by two guys really strongly. One of them was Eric Swalwell, who we know what happened there. And then they threw him under the bus when they saw that he could lose. And obviously what he did was terrible too, the allegations. And now you got this guy, and Ruben Gallego finally a few minutes ago put out a statement saying, I think that maybe he shouldn't run, but he was one of the most stalwarts. So far he's got 100% batting average for losers.
Well, no, and then, you always have to find a New York angle, right? So Morris Katz and Rebecca Katz, who worked for Zohran Mamdani, who was like Zohran Mamdani's closest advisor, have been the brain trust behind this Maine race. And it was reported today in the Post that they were the ones telling him he should still stay in or he should use his leverage while he's in to try to pick the candidate who will take his spot on the ballot, as if these people have a leg to stand on. I mean, really.
Melissa, they created... Katz and that lady created him. He wasn't an organic rising up, a natural candidate.
They created Mamdani and they created Graham Plattner.
It's all central casting.
Correct. And you know what they have in common? Their hatred, a blind hatred of Israel, and their support for these socialist/communist policies, economic policies that have never worked anywhere in the world, and if anything, have just set economies back. So these are the consultants who are best friends with Mamdani. But yes, they were behind him, and they are behind Graham Plattner. And as was reported, they apparently still are.
It's incredible. And by the way, I saw Morris Katz last week on TV, minimizing the Nazi tattoo, essentially saying it's not that bad. He's Jewish too, so that's lovely.
No,
really,
they are really something else. Morris Katz was on with David Axelrod, and he said that Graham Plattner's past Reddit post about women taking responsibility for rape made him more relatable to young white voters, young white male voters.
That's wonderful.
Actually had that thought in his brain and gave voice to it. That is how detached from reality these people are.
That's amazing.
No, people have to keep speaking up and calling this stuff out, or we are on the verge of losing the Democratic Party as we know it. It's happening before our eyes. People have to sound the alarm, and people on like-minded moderates on both sides of the aisle have to come together.
I agree. They got to wake up. Melissa, thank you very much, Melissa.
Keep fighting for the Democratic Party.
Thank you.
this summer unforgettable driving in a Mercedes-Benz from Mercedes-Benz of Edison. Join me Friday, July 10th at 12 noon, where I will be hosting my show live from Mercedes-Benz of Edison. I'm excited to see my friend and GM Doug Wells and the entire staff. Mercedes-Benz of Edison is committed to making your shopping experience stress-free. That's one reason they were named the 2026 Mercedes-Benz Dealer of the Year by Cars.com. Visit Mercedes-Benz of Edison and meet me, Greg Kelly. See you soon.